Hello everyone, welcome to Tactica, Imperialis and to today's video. Today is episode 80 of Adeptus Podcastus. Back to a nice round number. I love it when I get the nice round numbers. Joining me as always is Remleiz from 40k Theories.
Hello everyone.
And our special guest this week, as we mentioned in the previous episode, all the way from the other side of Europe, or maybe the other side of Nostromo, depending on how you like to think about it. Ladies, gentlemen, Xenos of all ages, and everything in between, I give you, returning for the first time, Disarmonia.
Hello, gentlemen. Exceptionally glad to join you tonight.
Also,
Yes,
she's returning for the second time, because remember for that, the clusterfuck episode?
There was episode 50 as well. I've returned already once.
I had banished that from my mind, thank you, Remleiz. Anyway, yes, this booking has been a long time coming, let me tell you. We've been waiting for this booking. You'll find out why later in the show.
Indeed.
But before we get there, we have a lot to cover. The news, as always, has been very, very flipping busy. Let's start at the back and work forwards, because I think that's where the most interesting stuff is. Anyway, so probably the most interesting reveal I think we've had over the past couple of weeks would be that of Jain Zar. We knew the Phoenix Lord was coming, or at least we had a good idea the Phoenix Lord was coming from Phoenix Rising and the Howling Banshee miniature, and now we've actually got Jain Zar's miniature. And I believe by the time this video is out on Wednesday, on the Monday, we'll have got the reveal of the main Drakari character, whoever that happens to be. So, what do we think of Jain Zar?
I'm liking the colour scheme they've given this version as opposed to just being plain silver. The combination of bone, orange and green gives it a very Irish feel, which is appropriate for a Banshee.
Not sure if antagonistic comment there, but alright.
I'm allowed to say that I'm half Irish.
So am I, but I'm still cringing. Yeah, I do really quite like the Jain Zar miniature. I think one of my friends put it to me best. I love the miniature, but I feel no need to buy it, I think is how I'd sum it up. I love it, but I would never buy it, because bone armour and white in general is something I can't paint for toffee.
You can always paint in the old silver colour scheme.
I mean, yes, but also no. I mean, I do like the model, but I'm not a big fan of Eldari in general, which is weird because I collect a load of elves and I'll be getting to elves later. But I don't know, the Eldari range just doesn't do it for me particularly. And yeah, it's a nice model, but I wouldn't pick it up myself.
The main thing I've seen about people talking about this model is the fact that the armour has a sculpted belly button.
Oh yeah, I did hear that going around.
I'm looking at it right now, and the belly button is something pretty uncanny right there. She wasn't always wearing this type of armor, right? Or am I getting confused?
I mean, she's always been sort of Howling Banshee-esque, though I never had the metal miniature in front of me to compare it to a Howling Banshee, if I'm completely honest. But she's definitely kept some things, but the hair's definitely changed, so that's gone from being quite black to this very brilliant red.
As has the mask itself. It hasn't got the second mouth on it.
Yeah, the armour, obviously, as we mentioned, has changed colour. So, yeah, it's definitely changed in many ways, though I can't say about the sculpt how much has changed.
Quite a lot, I'd say.
Yeah.
Probably, yes.
Well, I mean, I guess they were trying to do something similar, but not entirely the same. So, the pose is resembling the old one, but is not exactly that.
It's a bit more dynamic.
Yeah, definitely. Though I can imagine transporting it is going to be fun, because that's quite a narrow join of sticky-outy bit of rock and ponytail.
I mean, in fairness, it still looks better than what, Celestine has, which is a thin bit of ribbon.
Oh yeah, Celestine's infamously awful for sticking to bases, but I can't imagine Jain Zar being a particularly nice one either. But this leads into some speculation because before we got Jane Czar's miniature, we saw Jane Czar in a piece of artwork, the main artwork we think for Phoenix Rising, and she is fighting a Drukhari character. Now we have no idea who this character is as of time of recording. When you're watching this in the middle of the week, you'll probably know. So this has led to a little bit of debate as to who this is going to be.
Yes. I personally like to think it would be Ahra, Fallen Phoenix Lord, but it would be appropriate. You could say the Phoenix Rising is, hey, it's the return of the Fallen Phoenix Lord. But at the same time, given the fact, Incubi, 2 blades, it could be an extremely drastically redesigned Drazhar.
That is also possible. Drazhar is the only miniature from the 3rd edition Dark Eldar line that's still in the book and left standing. I think. I'm willing to be corrected on that, but
I'm trying to remember of the 3rd edition Dark Eldar Codex characters. You had Asdrubal Vex, hasn't got a model. Cruella the Vile seems to have been pretty much retconned out of existence.
Lilith got redone. Rakarth, if he ever existed, got redone.
He got redone, yeah.
And then all the units got redone at one point or introduced brand new. So I think Drazhar is the last one standing.
So it's equally possible it could be Ahra or a new Drazhar.
I think if it weren't for the fact that we were getting Incubi, I'd absolutely go for Ahra. But the other thing against Ahra, at least for me, is Ahra was a striking scorpion. That was his original aspect before he fell. He was succeeded by Karandras as the Phoenix Lord of Striking Scorpions. So it's possible that he should have a bit more of a striking scorpion sort of callback. Not look, but at least an homage a bit to the striking scorpions if it were Ahra.
True, and then again, he also did found the Incubi.
This is true. This is also true. I had forgotten that part. So yeah, could definitely be either of them. Personally, I want Ahra, but I think Drazhar is probably where the smart money is.
Yeah. If it is, I'll be very disappointed that I haven't given him his old, praying mantis blades and just given him some more generic-looking swords. But hey, can't win them all.
Yeah, because Drazhar had the demiclaves. No, the Clavex has demiclaves. What were Drazhar's blades called?
Disemboweler blades, I think they were called.
That sounds like their 3rd edition name. I feel like they probably gave them a fancier name in the 5th edition version, just because that's just the way of these things. But we will see, or by the time you're watching this episode, you will have seen, and one of us will be right and the other one of us will have egg on their face. But that wasn't the only miniature for Warhammer 40,000 that we got to see this week. So, continuing in the thread of Space Marine Codex characters for the Primaris, we have received 2 new miniatures. One Salamander, which is... I have completely forgotten their name. It's in the trailer, but I don't want to be playing because it'll probably come out in the recording. And we also have Tor Garadon, made famous in the Sentinels of Terror supplement, 3rd captain of the Imperial Fists, and generally an all-round badass who made Darnath Lysander look good.
Whose artwork makes him look like a fat man with a tiny head and with a gormless expression. He looks like that whole what meme guy.
Is it a guy? I always thought it was a
grandma. The whole what meme.
The what meme? It's a grandma.
Yes, the what meme.
It's not a guy.
Oh, is it a grandma?
I'm pretty sure it is a grandma. It's a babushka.
Oh. Well, regardless, Tor Garadon looks like a babushka then.
I mean, fair enough.
So yes. We didn't get Primaris Vulcan Hestan, which I think I was particularly expecting Primaris Vulcan Hestan and possibly Primaris Lysander going to Gravis, just to update all the old miniatures from the previous incarnation of the Space Marine Codex. But they haven't gone that route. So now we've got 2 named characters for the Sallies and 2 named characters for the Fists. So Raven Guard and White Scars players, I hope you feel sad right now. But yeah, I have to say, I really like I quite like both miniatures. I particularly like the Salamander because his Thunderhammer is a 30k Thunderhammer rather than a 40k one, which is just a nice little thing for a mastercrafted artisan weapon from the bygone age. And that hand flamer is gorgeous.
Oh, I just remember his name is something like Adrax Rigatoni or something.
Rigatoni is past.
Oh, it's Adrax Agatone, sorry. My bad.
Oh, Remleiz.
He's a spicy dish. There you go.
Yeah. Personally, I'd be tempted to... Yeah, I'd be tempted to head swap the Salamander. Like, I don't know. I feel like maybe a helm would work slightly better than the rebreathed version, but that might just be my personal taste. In general, the model looks lovely either way. And it's cool to see. Have you seen on the right shoulder pad? They've moved the chapter symbol onto the shield crest, and on the right shoulder pad, you've got an Aquila as opposed to a company marking or a chapter symbol, which is something I don't think we see very often. It's a nice touch, because normally that's just a transfer.
Yeah.
If you put... and Garadon, I think that's... Is that Gravis armor? I'm struggling.
I think it is, yeah.
I think it's Gravis armor.
It was massive.
People were hoping...
Massive power fist with a knuckle duster attached to it.
Unfortunately, it's not a knuckle duster. It's a pile of hurricane bolters, I believe.
It's more interesting to believe it's, knuckle duster. That's more entertaining.
I mean, yes, it is. And apparently he needed a free hand for reading his all specs and punching people, so he put his grav cannon on his shoulder for some sodding reason. But in general, for someone who is a sentinel of terror, a strategist sort of character, at least that's how I remember the Sentinels of Terror, I think that's a really good depiction for Garadon, and he certainly will not look out of place in an Imperial Fist Primaris battle.
Also, I've noticed a bit of a weird choice in the design in regards to the shield crest with this, Imperial Fist icon. Because just above that, there's like a bolt, which makes it look like he's giving the finger.
I mean, I don't see that. I see the bolt, but I don't see that.
I mean, if you're just looking casually, it looks like his fist is just giving the finger. Maybe it's just me.
I think it might just be you.
Also, I've seen a lot of people making a whole bunch of small soldiers references.
And a bunch of people making Torgadon references, because people can't spell. So yes, we will be getting information in October about the Salamanders and Imperial Fists supplements. So the way I'm thinking this is sort of going to go is Beastgrave is just come out, the Underworlds game. Beastgrave has just come out. And next week we've got 2 AOS battle tomes, Korac War Clans and Cities of Sigmar, and I am buying both of them. I am super hyped. Then I think we'll get the Imperial Fists and the Salamanders, which will take us to the middle of October. And then I think we'll probably get maybe something slotted in the middle before we get the Ossiarch at the end of October. That's sort of how I'm thinking about it right now in terms of upcoming releases.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, but there's a lot going on. I've already briefly hinted at Cities of Sigmar and Korac War Clans. We're getting nothing new aside from a giant pile of lore in those 2 books and, more allegiance abilities and army traits and stuff than you can care to shake a stick at or a squig at. And I am just super hyped because I've got so many old Dark Elves and I've always wanted an Empire army. So, yeah, I'm getting cities immediately. And I've always liked Iron Jaws as well because big stompy infantry and chunky heavy cavalry. So, I'm glad I've got my first bursary payment for my teacher training now because I can spend it on Warhammer books.
Speaking of which,
as all things should.
Speaking of which, Black Library Weekender is coming up on the 9th and the 10th of November. Even though Games Workshop still refused to update the Black Library Coming Soon page on Warhammer Community.
Yeah, I was just thinking, are we getting any news considering books? Apparently not.
Considering the Belisarius Cawl novel literally just dropped out of nowhere with no indication of when it was going to be released. It just showed up on Black Library site one day. It's like, guys, just update the fucking site. It's not hard.
This page is pure disappointment. I mean,
It's
there are some things in
it's
there,
useless.
yes. Yeah, it is absolutely useless. And I just wonder still, like, why fix what isn't broken, you know? Because the one on
Mm.
Black Library's site was so perfect and so useful, and I went there almost every single day. This one I never
But it
visit because it's useless.
never updated.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I understand why they moved it to try and get some more traffic to it, but they haven't kept it updated, and that's a problem.
I thought they just moved it just because they needed, to have space to fit their Warhammer horror line, which
I'm buying
seems to be
this idea, to be honest. I really think that they moved it to fit the Warhammer horror tab, because the side, the Black Library side, is so horribly outdated. I don't think there was any other option for them, unless they had to remove something to put the horror in there.
mm,
Because
I mean,
you know
But
when this
yes.
whole issue was happening with Solar War, being ordered in
Oh.
bulk and everything like that, they
Yeah.
then decided that the second book will only be launched on Games Workshop site and not on Black Library, because again, Black Library site is so old, they can't even like implement this thing of like a limit, one per customer. Basically, it just can't be done there because the site is so old.
yeah.
That's very unfortunate.
Yeah, don't remind me of that debacle. Paying £200 for one book.
I mean, you got it at least.
I got it, and I got the refund as well. So
Well, see, it's not that bad, I guess, compared to everyone else who either missed out or had to buy it from eBay for $500 or something.
oh, bloody scalpers!
Yeah, it's a pain.
Yes.
Quite. Is there anything for the weekender that we know about, aside from like some people who are going to be turning up?
They revealed that the series 2 of the novellas are going to be available to purchase there. Like that one with the Necron novella and the Age of Sigmar ones and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Gav Thorpe's going to be doing a presentation in regards to the third Siege of Terror book.
Yes, he is. He's doing that on the
Didn't they
Saturday
reveal
morning.
the name of the third book as well?
I think we already know that's the first wall.
Okay, fair enough.
I think we got that. I think we got that a short while ago. Not that long ago.
We got that revealed at the same time that Lost and the Damned got revealed, except Lost and the Damned also had cover art revealed. You got quite a lot of guests coming up. You obviously got guys like like John French is going to be there, Andy Clark, Darius Hinks, David Geimer, Dan Abnett, David Annandale. Pretty much all the big names are going to be there, apart from ADB.
Yeah,
I think.
I'm actually reading the schedule at the moment.
I haven't seen Graham there. I'm sure I've seen Dan there, but that's about it.
Dan's definitely there. If I look at the attendees, the people who are attending,
there's a lot of guests.
Graham Lyon is there, but I don't think Graham McNeil is. But yeah, there's a bunch of talks. I got a look at the timetable here actually. So Siege of Terror, the first war with Gav is at lunchtime. But there's another Siege of Terror seminar later with four of the authors called The Beginning of the End. There's also
the beginning of what? Sorry, you cut out.
The Beginning of the End.
Ah.
There's a talk from Chris Raitt about the Constantine Valdor novel. We've got a series of stratagem seminars, so like the art of script writing, building a narrative, so proper like if you want to be a writer seminar stuff, which is interesting. Navigating the Dark Millennium. That could be interesting. Navigating the Dark Millennium. A seminar on the Sabbath Worlds. Coming soon from Black Library will be Sunday afternoon, I think. So yeah, there's plenty going on if you are able to attend.
I'm sending my agents as always.
Yes, I'm sure you both are.
Yes. I like how one of these things is called No One Will Hear You Scream.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, so they're getting Alien involved, are they? Oh, dear.
But yes, there is even more. We're not done.
I just noticed that for the Sabbath Worlds Crusades, Dan Abner and Rachel Harrison. That's interesting.
Rachel Harrison, is that the one who wrote Severina
Yeah, she
Rain?
is, yeah.
I'm not sure if I read anything of hers, to be honest.
Yeah, I think she's quite new. I think she's quite new. Severina Rain was her first.
I've heard good things. I've not read any of her stories, but I've heard good things. Like, I know one of her short stories like recently won like an award or something.
Okay.
Yes, I remember that.
Oh,
I
listened to her audio drama from the horror. The Way Out, it's called. I enjoyed it. I think that it was more of a horror than Perdition's Flame, for example. Because when I listened to that one, I thought, why is it a separate line of books? I wonder, because it's just the same thing as always. Not spookier than like every other like Chaos Space Marine story, say. But the Way Out, I mean, it was performed very well, I think. So I enjoyed this one. I think she did a good job, and the voice actors as well.
That's good to hear.
Excellent. So maybe either that means that Rachel will be bringing Severina into the Sabbath Worlds Crusade, either separately or alongside Gaunt, or Dan is just handing over the reins of Gaunt's ghost, one or the other.
That would be interesting.
And I very much doubt he's going to hand over the reins of Gaunt's ghost, though.
I mean, you never know, because remember, Bill King did eventually hand over the reign to Gotrek and Felix, didn't he?
True.
And he also handed over the Space Wolf series as well.
Yeah, but I think Bill King was stepping away from Black Library in general, because he only came back recently to write Macarius, didn't he?
That was quite an old one, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, I know he'd been away for a while before he came to write Macarius. So it has been a while now.
Fair enough.
Yes, so what else have we got? Oh, yes, this. The Primaris Intercessor Bandai action figure. We saw this previewed a while ago in grayscale, but we hadn't seen it fully realised until now, and, well, now we have. We don't know when it's going to be available yet, or how much it's going to cost, but it's a thing.
It is definitely, and I really want one, but I'm not sure if I want an Ultramarine, so I wonder if there will be an unpainted version, so I can, paint it midnight blue.
I'm finding it unlikely somehow.
Well, I mean, who knows?
They'll probably just paint it, like, here's a Blood Angel and a Salamander and a Space Wolf and a Dark Angel.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't the Funko Pop, this is...
No, but this is Bandai. They made the action figure, best way to recoup costs is to, just repaint it and sell it at full price. There you go, you're making profit there.
I mean, I actually nearly bought, speaking of the Funko Pops, I actually nearly bought one the other day.
Oh, God.
Because I wanted to get something to use sort of as a model for my new Tactica Tutorialis series. So I've got like a model I can model things with. But they was out, unfortunately. It sold out, so I didn't get one. I was
tempted because I saw a few people on Twitter who converted their little, I think, Ultramarines or Blood Angels into little Night Lords, and they looked very adorable, but I can't be bothered. There's too much DIY for me. So I'm just gonna wait. Maybe it will happen someday. Very unlikely, but who knows?
we might get a series 2 at some point. Who knows?
Maybe if they sold well. So what we know about this action figure is it's about 8 inch tall. So that's about, 20 centimeters, give or take?
I'm gonna do Google right now. Centimeters. That's 45 centimeters? That's a lot. Oh, 8?
8 inches.
I heard 18. Okay, 8 inches is 20 centimeters. Yeah, that's fine for an action figure. Not the biggest, not the smallest.
Yep. 50 points of articulation, so it's going to be bent in 50 places. We're not exactly sure. I think at least one of them will be the head joint. They've shown it down on one knee.
I will say this. The image they showed of the 360, all the way round view of it, what really annoys me is the fact that its arm is out of its socket.
Oh no.
Oh yeah.
That irritates me.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I know you're trying to get the pose, but still. It's like,
Maybe it's an injury. You know.
It's like, it's just a flesh wound.
An injury where he's resting his decapitated arm at an impossible angle on his
It's
own
Alessio Cortez!
Many
That would
different
be
things
impressive.
can happen in the warp, you know, so...
It's Alessio Cortez, he found his arm.
True.
Great.
Oy. But yes, that is a thing. We don't know when it's going to be out yet, but it is a thing. Mine a little bit of admin as well. Today, at the time of recording, we also received the equivalent of the big FAQ for Warhammer 40k for this time of year. They actually have done no big changes, so no balance changes, no beta rules. They've just confirmed all the old beta rules. So, quite a quiet one. They just clarified a few things in the FAQs. So, if you are someone who likes to be on top of matched play, then go have a look at that. There's not a lot to say, really, I'm afraid. Other than that, what else? I know I saw something. Oh! Combat cards! Yes, this. This is something Remleiz probably has heard of.
I still have an original pack.
Of course you do.
Well,
Of course I do.
yes. Well, now it's gone onto iOS and Android.
Boo.
I don't see much
Sorry.
enthusiasm here about this specific topic.
No, I just thought I'd mention it because,
Yeah.
well, it's an old thing. Rem's old.
Fair point.
So, yes. But yes, the other thing that I've seen, and this isn't something that's officially out, but again, you'll have seen this, is there is another Underworlds War Band that is coming out. There's going to be 4 pretty soon. So we've got the 2, the Kenothi, who have sadly gone into the Sylvaneth, boo, and the Beastmen. We've also seen the Wolf Riders, whose faction name I have forgotten right now. And we've also seen, I think this was on the Age of Sigmar Facebook page, the artwork for a Flesh Eater Courts faction, which should have been revealed by the time this episode comes out. So there's one for every Grand Alliance inside the new series of Underworlds, and Flesh Eaters are long overdue, so happy. I will not bang on about Sigmar for too long. I do that too much already.
Fair enough.
Though I could happily just keep going and going and going. But you might notice I'm sort of glossing over the news because, well, I did say earlier this show was planned around a very particular thing. So I'm going to hand over now and just sit back and watch the fireworks.
Enjoy yourself.
Please, give us your views on the Comrade Kurz novel.
Oh, God.
Yes, this is why we waited to get Disarmonia back, because we had to wait for this novel to be read and digested.
Yeah, well, good that you
And now here we
wasn't
are.
waiting for me to finish the review, because that's not happening very soon, because I have 9 pages of notes. And it's a struggle. Well, I would actually prefer this to be a conversation with Remleiz rather than a dialogue, rather than a monologue, just because I'm not sure how entertaining my complaining for, a very long time is going to be to the listeners. So
I'm sure it'll be very entertaining, but we can spar off each one.
where
each
do
other,
we
so.
even start? I mean, it was a disappointment.
How about yeah. I mean, we could always start with Robin the Rapist.
Oh God! See, you're just going straight right there. I wanted to start with something that I actually appreciated, which was chapter 2 and one of the later chapters with the Nostrum and High Lords, and that's about it.
Okay, there's one rule for this rant. Don't get this demonetized. That's the only rule.
Oh, sure. Yeah, okay. I was actually thinking about there are plenty of topics that are very touchy there, but we can, substitute certain words, I think. Basically, this book can we do like a little prequel to this story of eternal sadness? Do you remember, Remleiz, when once upon a time I got a synopsis, which I believe I've sent to you, before the book, I think exactly when the book was announced,
Oh,
and there was
yeah.
this little synopsis that said a certain quote, which I think I must have
It was
it.
something along the lines of it, like saying, like, "Oh, Comracus knows the truth, and it's to embrace
Uh,
chaos," or something like that.
yeah, exactly. The exact quote, which I for sure do have right here, stated this. He who once served the Imperium saw the truth in a maddening universe and the hypocrisy of a loveless father, and embraced the only thing that made any sense: chaos. Capitalized. Um, that gave me a lot of confusion. Me and many other people who were texting me for answers. I don't know why. It's not like I have all the
For
answers about all the
for me, I've
Night
always said
stuff.
that gave you an aneurysm.
Yeah. But yeah, that was. See, then I've been told that it was some misunderstanding, I guess, and the synopsis was misleading. And I actually checked after I finished the book and started to write my review. I wanted to like, remember this little thing that happened, and I went to Black Library's site and a few other sites where they sell the hardcover copy, and the audiobook and everything, and they changed it, and it's nowhere to be found. It now says he embraced the darkness, which is, I don't know, it's still a little confusing to me because I think he embraced the darkness way before, you know,
Yeah.
the hypocrisy of the loveless father and all this kind of nonsense. But I mean, at least it doesn't say he is all about the chaos now, even though I do believe that this book is entirely chaotic. All about it.
Just not in the entertaining way.
Absolutely. Because, yeah, and see, well, I want to say one thing, though, before I start to complain a lot. I want to stress that the fact that I didn't like this book doesn't mean that I think Guy Haley is a bad author. Because somehow um, we actually know for a fact that he's entirely capable of writing something decent. Uh, and
Yeah, look at Dante, for
yeah,
example.
exactly, because I had hopes, for this one, because Perturabo, Hammer of Olympia is one of my favorite books in the Primarch series. Dante is actually now one of my favorite 40k books overall. I think it's just amazing. And so, I had some hopes. They didn't come true. But yeah, I just want to stress that I'm not hating on on anyone specifically here. I'm just not satisfied with a certain thing, and it's this book, which surprisingly enough as well, I see a lot of people actually enjoyed it. Like on Goodreads, a lot of people give it like 4 and 5 stars, and I wonder why.
I think maybe that's because they don't have the same. Perhaps maybe it just reads well if you don't know Kurz as well as you two do,
I would
because you
argue
two
that
know
so
Kurz
much.
inside out and backwards. So if it might just be it's a good story, but it's just not a good Conrad Kurz story, arguably.
It's not a good story, unfortunately. I'm sorry to disappoint you. I don't think it's. Well, see, I wouldn't recommend it. Not to people who are fans of the Legion, and not to people who just want to learn about it, because that's not where you learn about the eights. It's just no,
No.
not go there, please. It's not the
It's,
right place.
no. I mean, when you get to, scenes
I'm
like,
sorry.
hey, he.
You cut a little bit there. Can you repeat?
Oh, sorry.
Hmm.
Um, I think when you get to scenes like, hey, he's like, here's a naked Primarch running around and he's crucifying rats. What?
I think just to like give the overall idea, as I told you before, Ramleys, I don't think Guy Haley understands the Night Lords. I don't think he understands how it works. I don't think he gets the
No,
vibe, I don't think it's his thing, and this is why
I'll be honest. I think he's like he's trying to write them, but at the same time, he hasn't even. It feels like he hasn't done cursory research, outside of like which character is which. Okay,
Well, yeah, that this thing I can talk about for quite a while. For example, there are certain moments in this book that uh, are very confusing references. So at one point, there's this little scene with like the Chiroptera talking to Conrad, and it is mentioned that Trez, the character from Prince of Crows, is just standing there. Why did we need this reference? He's not doing anything, it's not impacting the plot or the event in any matter. So this is just, a useless reference that most people who even read the Prince of Crows wouldn't remember what this guy's name was, right? Unless they read it 2 billion times like I did. So it's just confusing. But then when it comes to important topics, like for example, the whole character of Savitar, who doesn't seem to be Savitar's. It just looks like someone just is wearing a costume of Savitar and is pretending to be him in this book. And he doesn't know, like, the very, the most important details of his character, seemingly. So it's just confusing. He references certain things that are unimportant, but then the important ones he completely forgets. So an example of that, in my opinion, is with Savitar's scene. It starts where Jago and a few other Night Lords are trying to locate Conrad on a certain plan that they've been doing, I guess, some compliance things like back in the day, and they can't locate Kurz. So at one point, Savitar decides he will casually use his latent psychic powers as a GPS navigator.
Yeah, that was kind of like, wait, what?
Well, I mean, if you're, say, like some dude from the Southern Suns and you do your magical things day and night, maybe it's a fair point, you have the skills, you can just use your psychic powers as a GPS navigator, why not? But Savitar, who have been trying to, push down his latent abilities to the point of, them never resurfacing, and if someone who's listening have read Prince of Crows, as soon as he lets his abilities out, he can't control them anymore. He gets all kinds of troubles, and he specifically went through training and meditation and all kinds of things to make sure they never resurface and no one knows about them. And then he casually, secretly though, it is mentioned he doesn't want his brothers to know about that, but he absolutely casually uses those powers for something so simple as trying to locate Conrad.
Yeah, because like the only other time I can really remember off the top of my head of Savitar using his psychic powers was basically when Felzaros was trying to kill him, and even then it just seemed like reflex more than anything.
Yes, absolutely. It was. We'll see again, because my problem with this book is it makes me question my knowledge, because I'm reading it, and I'm thinking, am I insane? Am I just not, because I've read all the Night Lord stuff many times, and I'm thinking, is this my head canon? Like, am I just coming up with this like in my head? Is it not actually, the way things are? Is this book actually saying it how it is? And I was like entirely delusional the whole time. And then I go and recheck, and no, I was actually right, because I went to I read Child of Night before, reread Child of Night for the 5th time or something before reading The Night Hunter. Savitar uses his psychic powers against Feljarost as sort of a reflex. It's not voluntary, I believe, judging by his own reaction to what he did. And then I went and reread Prince of Crows for the billionth time, and right there's a certain little dialogue before he's about to actually knowingly use his psychic abilities. And Trez, the character that I already mentioned, the old man, who talks to Kurz about his dreams and things, says a certain thing. Okay, where is it? 1 second. If you unlock the gift you fought so hard to forget, some doors cannot be closed. And Sevatar responds that he already is struggling to restrain it. So I guess in the scene in Child of Night with Felgerost, that was a struggle of restraining it, but he was still trying, and he was trying to restrain it the whole time before this scene in Prince of Crows, when he uses them intentionally, and after that he can't restrain them anymore. So this it's a ridiculous little thing that's I believe an author who's writing a book about a character who's very prominent, and is the most famous character of the Legion. The author should know those things because they are very important.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was interesting, the idea of that one scene of Sevatar going to Terminator armor, because, like, well, Captain of the First Company.
I didn't hate that, to be honest.
I think so. It's an interesting
all
idea.
the Detrimental wear Terminator armor.
Yeah, but Sevatar doesn't normally do that. But I thought it was fine. It was cool that there's an instance of him wearing a Terminator armor for once. Another thing though, like. Back to Sevatar not being Sevatar. Well, first of all, he's not snarky, he's not witty, he's entirely compliant and agreeable and boring, and the way he talks to Kurz and to everyone else it's just not Sevatar. Because yeah.
I think I know the reason why Guy wrote Sevatar that way is because he wanted all the cool points for Gendor Scrivog,
who should burn in hell forever. That's a whole other topic of conversation. See, the other thing though is, I remember like closer to the end of the book, there were like some dialogue between Kurz and Sevatar, and basically it kind of went as, oh, Sevatar's so loyal, Sevatar always understands me, Sevatar is gonna go wherever I lead him and things like that. And he says wait. And he asks Sevatar as like, if I wanted you to do something that you would disagree with, what would you do? And Sevatar says, I would fight you even if I knew that would kill me. And he says, oh, okay, sure, but then, his thought process is explained, and apparently Kurz knows, because, he sees the visions and stuff, that Sevatar will actually stay entirely loyal forever, and will follow Kurz and, never disagree with him, and it's gonna be all fine and glad. And I'm reading this, and I'm thinking, when are we going to mention that Jago Sevatarian is also known as Sevatar the Condemned? And he's...
Yeah, I was just about to ask. I couldn't remember where the Sinner's Gauntlets were in all this.
So are we going to mention that his gauntlets are painted red, and why? I mean...
No, don't be silly.
We don't know why.
He's like, don't be silly. This is a guy Haley writing, Night Lords. Of course he's not going to mention it.
Yeah, which again, like, those are important traits of an important character. Why are they not mentioned? And why is it described as it's completely, different from what it's been in all the previous...
It feels like ADB was just on business and off voicemail that week. It sort of comes across as, Aaron wasn't there for consult. I'm just going to have to wing this.
Somehow, me as someone who just read the books, I know those things. And I'm not trying to write anything, aside from mediocre reviews on Goodreads. And I know those things, all of them. And why, I just don't understand, because there's not that many things written about the Night Lords. It really, and plus you can have everything in audio format now. It would take you like less than a week to just go through all the short stories, So like...
If you're on a writing, I'm sure you can appreciate being on deadlines, though. You might not genuinely have time to do all that research. And so the easiest way is to... I admit, I don't know what the workload was or what the schedule was, but it may have been he just didn't have time to read everything and consult with Aaron because he was away.
He could have checked.
It is possible.
He could have checked, Lexicanum or something.
At least.
I realize I'm defending the indefensible and playing a little bit much of an asshat devil's advocate.
No, I
here,
mean,
and I
it
apologize
is fair
for
enough.
That.
I'm not gonna hate you for that.
I'm just more confused. Like, how did Guy get the idea that Nostromo is a hot world?
God. Oh my God.
Can of worms.
It was... See, because you told me about that before I even started reading this novel, right? And I was like, okay, I mean, it's gonna happen at some point. It's happened in, like, the first chapter. It's already there. And it says, oh, Conrad Kurz, because he's on Sagwalsa at this point, and it says, oh, Conrad Kurz, he misses Nostromo's darkness. but the hit is what he doesn't miss. And I'm like, what?
I still maintain that guy confused Nostromo with Mordian.
I do believe so, because there's no other reason to think that Nostromo is a hot planet. And it took me about, 5 minutes to find a reference from, the old short stories that state exactly the opposite. And I've sent you...
So it's cold and wet.
Yeah, I've sent you quite a few
And
quotes from this.
It couldn't have been a case of accidentally writing heat instead of humidity.
No, because he stresses this throughout the whole book. Because in all of the Nostromo flashbacks, not only is it described as Gotham City filled with light, and that's a whole other topic, it is also extremely hot in all the scenes. And I think in Prince of Crows as well, it does state at one point that, summer came out of nowhere, and it was pretty hot. Which I believe the phrase, and correct me, English is not my first language. When it says it came out of nowhere, it kind of means that no one was expecting the heat, so it's not the norm.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not insane,
Exactly,
right? So
No, you're absolutely right.
Basically,
Which means that guy wrote everyone as being very sweaty.
yeah, this is my favorite part because see why the heat part is so just confusing and not working at all. What do we know about Nostromo people? What differentiates them from just a regular human? Their eyes. They developed their eyes because their planet is covered in complete darkness. It's the sunless world. So to see in the dark, through evolution, they developed very, enlarged pupils, and the eyes look entirely black, and this is how they see in the dark, because everything's dark.
Yeah.
Then, when I'm reading this book, Nostromo is described as full of neon signs and advertisement and traffic. It's dark, but, they have all the lights. So I wonder, why does the evolution decided to make them develop those eyes if they can just light everything up? It just, it's not how it works. And then I'm wondering, because everyone is sweaty, right? And and he stresses this point many times. It's very hot. It's very sweaty. There's one scene where the lords of Nostromo, so the wealthiest people, are gathered up in this hall, and they're all sitting on their thrones, and they're sweating in their thrones. This is exactly what it says. And I'm like, okay, does it mean literally? I think I asked you, Remleiz, right? About like, am I getting this correctly? They are literally sitting there, sweating in their thrones, and I wonder, first of all, if they have enough, of technological development to have all those lights, advertisements, and traffic, why didn't they have air conditioning?
Or at least a fan.
Or at least a fan. Because when I was reading, it was pretty hot here, and I was just sitting here under my air conditioner, feeling fine. And I was wondering why those high, very important people of Nostromo didn't do that. And then I wonder, why didn't they develop some heat resistance through evolution like they did the eyes? They don't even need, It's just ridiculous, and it makes no sense. I don't know. It made me very mad many, many, many times.
So, basically, Nostromo is now apparently Gotham City during a heat wave, apparently.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's their very own Robin. We shouldn't even sure how to say that to not get demonetized.
Robin the Deviant, as it's called, the Deviant.
Okay, Robin the Deviant. Anyway, go to Twitter for an uncensored version. Oh God. Well, see, before we talk about Robin the Deviant, I kind of wanted to talk about the chapter that comes before that, which was something that is kind of more serious, and made me entirely mad, to be honest, because see, like the first two chapters, they were pretty well. See, the second chapter I enjoyed. The first one was fine. The third one just made me completely mad. Because
That's the one where he goes into that woman's apartment, isn't it?
yeah, that's it. And
Yeah.
see, like, again, I don't want the podcast to get demonetized. I'm not sure if I need to even say the word, but
No, I know what you mean.
approaching certain subjects that are extremely touchy to quite a few people, I think, I don't think it's forbidden. And just to make it clear, I'm not easily offended. Absolutely not. But I think it should be approached with great caution. And
Yeah, these are areas that I don't like to use the word trigger
Yeah.
because people decide that they're going to make a meme out of it. But I can't think of a more appropriate
yeah, absolutely.
phrase.
And well, see, me reading the third chapter, I wasn't having fun. Let me just say that. And the thing is, the way it portrays Kurz, which is just entirely ridiculous, he punishes this woman who didn't even commit the crime yet. She didn't even start to commit the crime yet, which, I mean, even calling it a crime is pretty questionable. But I guess, if it's the rule in the law on Strama, and Kurz is now all about the order, not about the justice, I guess. Sure. But she didn't even do that. And I understand that it's pretty ridiculous because it's not like he can torture her after she committed what she was planning to. But then, he punishes her for something that she didn't do. So it's an absolutely ridiculous point, in my opinion, and the chapter itself was just entirely unnecessary.
Yeah.
But then, after that, Robin the Deviant happens, which is an entirely confusing scene where it starts with Conrad encounters this woman being violated on the streets of Nostramu by these two young boys, I guess, or young men. He stops whatever's happening, and one of the deviants pees himself right there and dies right there as well. The other one tries to stand up for himself a little bit, and Conrad, instead of just killing him, he just says, "Run," and he runs. And here I'm like, so this woman from the previous chapter, you were gonna torture her, and this one's gonna run, okay, interesting. Then it went somewhere we also, I think, didn't need to go, which was a little episode of Curse looking at this body of this woman that he didn't do anything with, by the way. He just looked at it and had the thought process of why do human men have certain attractions to a female body, which it's not like it's something new. We already know that Primarchs don't have those feelings. Why do we? I don't know. He chases the deviant boy then, which I was happy to hear that he's not just gonna let him run, And then the confusion happens. Do you want to elaborate on that one, Ram?
Yeah, so essentially, Kurz ends up having a prophetic vision of two possible outcomes in regards to Robin the Deviant. One of which is basically, hey, I'm going to take this, criminal as my apprentice, as my sidekick, and we're going to go and stop crime together. Literally Batman and Robin.
Yeah, the Deviant.
And the other one is basically, he ends up, hurting Kurz, and everyone loses their fear of the Night Haunter. So which one does he pick? And it's just like, okay, I know you've made Nostromo Gotham C, but did you really need to put, Dick Grayson in there as well?
Well, see, aside from that, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm questioning everything now. Was there ever an instance before that Kurz got more than one vision, like more than one option? Because I believe it was always established that he sees the worst case scenario, and that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
So, and bear with me, he sees two options, right? One of them is a positive one, another one is a negative one, which again never happened before, but okay. Instead of choosing a positive one, Conrad decides that he's just gonna kill the boy right there and then, because by doing so he would prevent a potential negative outcome. this is bad writing. I can't put it in other, there's no other word to use there, because um if he actually did choose, oh, I mean, it would be entirely ridiculous, but if he actually did choose to give this boy a chance, and then he, ended up being a horrible person and stabbing hers in the back or something, then he would have a reason to then always choose the worst case scenario, which I think is the point that guy was trying to, um, you know, explain to
It,
everyone. It's like Kurz was choosing, and that's why I hated the final scene of this book. Apparently, Kurz was choosing to, follow the worst case scenario, and it wasn't the only thing he was shown. Um, if there was a reason for him to do that, if he actually did choose the potential positive outcome and it didn't work out, then he would have a reason to then always choose the worst case scenario. Here, he just decides for absolutely no reason. It's not justified in any, by anything really. So it's dumb.
just to put it mildly,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, I don't know. It's just confusing, and we'll see. As I just said in the final scene, when it's like, you're not at fault for anything, my son. Just this one thing. So you actually, at fault for everything because you chose to be miserable, I guess.
Did you want to talk about the Korac scenes as well?
Oh God. Ah.
I almost feel like we'll be damaging some sanity if we carry on.
No, I mean the Korac Scenes. Yes. Okay, I want to talk about the Korac Scenes. I
Okay,
read the
here we go.
Korac's book previously. Didn't like it. This I don't know, and I don't understand why they are trying to make Korax into this, curse that wasn't broken or something, because I've always thought they are quite different. The only similarities are just like the hairstyle. It's kind of it, and like the eyes. Their background is very different.
I get that. I mean, before I started doing my research into Primarchs and Legions, and this is like 3-4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
When you just see, it's the Raven Guard, they're kind of like the air quotes emo legion. Then you've got the Night Lords, are sort of the air quotes goth legion. I can understand on a very surface level glance, and I'm saying not this isn't right, but on a surface level glance, people might say, "Oh,
I'm not gonna
Kurz is just evil Korax."
It's okay.
No, but I can easily. I know that some people would say, "Oh, Kurz has a jump pack, has lightning claws, has a slightly gothy emo aesthetic. So does Korax. Also, comes from a legion that's got like a bird as their aesthetic, but it's a slightly more horror one. Okay, Kurz is just evil Korax."
We'll see.
At a surface glance, you can see that.
This is a very on the surface type of approach, and I'm trying to judge them as the things that have been written in the books, and they are very different. And so
I agree.
comparing them, and Kurz is making this comparison himself in this book, and he literally says he's jealous. He literally says that. It's so ridiculous because I've read quite a few Korax books recently, and it really seems to me that the authors are really, really trying to make him cool, but it's just not happening. It's just not happening, and I mean, you can't do that because he's kind of boring, and I mean, he's supposed.
But his eyes are blacker.
Wait, he's supposed to be a sneaky, sad boy, not a spooky boy. It's a different thing. Just leave the spook to the curse and just make him a sneak boy, make him sad, and it's gonna work out for him. Just stop comparing them. Because in this book, not only Curse literally says that he's jealous of Korax because he didn't fail, even though, obviously, if you know anything about Conrad's and Korax's background, it's very different levels of madness. And then Yeah, you see, like they even say, oh, Korex's eyes are black. Apparently, Conrad's are just, very large pupils, similarly to people of Nostromo and his legionnaires, but Korax is just pure darkness. They are so, so, so black, and at one point,
Would you like some more edge with that?
yeah, of course, all of it. At some point, a curse says, "I haunted the night, but Korax owned it." Fucking hell.
Yeah, there is
It
so
was-
much angst and edge.
It was
and,
so
ugh.
painful to read.
Crawling
It was
in
so
my
cringe.
skin.
Holy. It was so painful. God. And yeah, I mean, at this point, I can write a thesis on why Korax will never be cooler than Curse. As as hard as you are gonna try to do that, it's not gonna be a thing ever.
I
So look
also
forward
just
to that in the
remembered.
upcoming book review.
I also just remember this was also the scene where Kurz was just sitting there eating some of his own Space Marines.
Absolutely, because that's what he does.
Aye.
Also, again, we got my favorite color of Midnight Black mentioned right there. Oh my god, like my friends are laughing at me at this point. Like I'm so annoyed by this, and I know it's probably a little bit. I'm taking this way too seriously, right? Because it's just a fucking color, but it's not a thing. How do you? Black is the absence of color. How do you make it midnight? Is it bluish? Then it's midnight blue. Ah.
Oh
It's-
dear, oh dear, oh
It's
dear.
ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Oh my god. This book is a painful experience, let me just say that.
Yeah,
We forgot to talk about Genders Krivok, Remleiz. And his
I thought that you were doing that just to deny him the privilege of airtime.
I want to hear his opinions because we've discussed a bit earlier about how Genders Krivok is single-handedly
man's Scimitar?
responsible. Yeah.
I mean, because I've already told you a few things that happen in Lost and the
Oh
Damned.
yes.
Where Lotaro and Khan go, hey, we need to help dealing with Demon Angron. I know, let's go ask Gendor Scrivok. He's so cool.
Oh god. Well,
He's the only one who can help us stop Angron. What?
and somehow he's the single-handedly responsible for the questionable recruits coming from Nostromo. Somehow. And again, I'm reading this.
Despite not being a master of recruits.
Yes, I'm reading this insanity. And okay, there's his relative right there on Nostromo who's doing some snaky, shady business there. And Scrivok is in contact with him, and he's gonna organize all of that, taking the criminals and the worst kind of Nostroman people and recruit them to the Legion. And I'm wondering, is this how it works? Because I read Dante by Guy Haley, and the process of recruitment, I mean, okay, it's the Blood Angels, okay, it's in 40k, not 30k, but I doubt it's that different. It's just one guy, Gandos Krivok, who is single-handedly responsible of fucking up, the whole Legion stock? No, this is dumb.
I mean, going just to 30k era, recruitment.
Mm-hmm.
If you look in Scars, but you got some recruits training up, prior to receiving any genes and implants. They're training up in these big, training grounds.
There are many people involved.
Because
there are many legionnaires.
Yeah. And they
sorry,
all
I can't
think
English.
and they all think it's like, oh, we're training up, right? So once we're done training, we're going to be inducted into the Lunar Wars. And then someone goes, no, the White Scars need reinforcements. You're all going to be White Scars.
Yeah.
Oh. And there was much disappointment that day.
Yeah, and to stay with 30k, Luther, when he was sent back by Johnson, was to oversee recruitment, but he didn't go back on his own to do it. He went back with a full contingent of Dark Angels to presumably help him with those matters. I admit that's a different scenario again, because
It was recruitment / garrison force.
and we will have, if we have time, a brief discussion about the new Dark Angels in White Dwarf, if we have time. I feel like I need to break up the Just because I know what Remleiz' book of the week is, and it's not going to be pretty, so I feel like I need to break up the salt.
Well, I apologize if I get
No, you're forward in your rights.
a little too enthusiastic. It's just, my voice.
Enthusiasm's good.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd rather people complain for ages than just say meh and move on.
Oh,
I mean, I'll be honest. I was kind of looking forward to your response, like when guys gets that scene with Talos, and you're like, "Don't you dare ruin my boy Talos!
yeah.
Don't you dare!"
Oh God. We'll see. I mean, I don't even know. Like, I can probably like if you told me, Veronica, you have 10 hours of airtime. I'm sure I would be able to complain about this book for 10 hours, and I wouldn't repeat myself once. So there are many things. I'm gonna write about it. I'm not gonna take more of this airtime for my Night Lords complaining. So
Also, Talon Master is not a rank; it is a title. Shows how it is the Talon Master, not Talon Master.
I checked in several books, and we have screenshots. It's the only Talon Master. Zosa.
Just like how Talos is the Soul Hunter, how Felzaros is the Dream Eater.
Yeah, and how Savitar is the Prince of Prose.
Yeah.
And so on, yes.
And then even with Gendor Scroll, he's the Painted Count.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also a waste of space.
No, but that's not a title, that's an A, not a the.
He's the waste of space. Oh God.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear.
Anyway,
right.
I will shut up. Go on.
You're fine. We invited you on the show specifically for this rant in many ways, so you were well within your rights. Right, just to break up the rage, I'm going to talk about Dark Angels for 10 minutes.
Okay, go ahead.
Because I know what Remleiz has got on his mind. So, in September's White Dwarf, we got a Index Imperialis about the Dark Angels, and some of it concerns the Primaris and how the Primaris have now adapted into the Dark Angels, and finally addressed the question of, are we going to get Primaris in the Inner Circle, in the Deathwing, and so on and so forth? And the broad answer is yes, 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 we are. And it goes into an explanation of how that came to be. So, for example, Inner Circle members would die, but cross the Rubicon rather than die in order to become Primaris. That's one way. And the other way is that they would create their own Primaris using their own training methods, their own indoctrinations, their own recruitment styles. And those Primaris were much more trustworthy. Granted, it wasn't that common for those ones to come across. In fact, I don't think any of them became in a circle naturally, but they gave themselves that option. The problem was the Grey Shields, which are, of course, if you don't know that name, are the ones who were created by Cawl en masse and who went around with Gilliman as basically a baby legion that was then broken up as we went along. And the Dark Angels couldn't trust them at all, didn't dare. And the problem was, and some of them pointed this out, we're all going to die eventually. So how are we going to have a hunt for the fallen?
Yeah.
If there are no people who know about it. So there was some argument of necessity, and Azrael took a gamble. His decision was, okay, the Deathwing think this Primaris called Afaran is up to it. So when it's time, we're going to initiate him into the Deathwing, see if he passes the trials. And Azrael oversaw these trials himself. He basically staked his entire reputation on one bloke. And it worked. Afaran joined the Deathwing. And everything worked out from there. And there are, I believe, Primaris Ravenwing as well, although I don't believe they ride bikes.
Yet.
The other interesting thing that's to note from this article, aside from the fact that it does Luther absolutely dirty, this is almost a pro-Johnson propaganda piece in some places. So it's like, Johnson, it doesn't even really talk about, Johnson sent Luther back for any reason. It just says, Luther became super jealous as he became second in command. He was then sent back after a handful of campaigns, and it felt like he was dismissed. No indication of Luther nearly let the lion get blown up and Johnson lost his rag.
Yeah.
No. Nothing like that. So they kind of gloss over the whole Luther arc and do him absolutely dirty. But they do talk about a chaplain Lazarus, aptly enough, who dies, or would have died, whilst fighting against the Thousand Sons. He's incapacitated by psychic powers, and he cannot be dreadnoughtified. A dreadnought sarcophagus is not enough to save him, so they Primaris him, and it works.
Huh.
Yeah, just let that sink in for a moment. The Rubicon Primaris can save people that a dreadnought sarcophagus cannot. Now, I've had to think about this, and the way I rationalize it is that the Rubicon Primaris has an absolutely awful success rate. It's something like 40%. So a 60% death rate, if you like. But if they could reconstruct all the damaged bits and then implant the Primaris stuff to help keep them going, let's say, okay, 60% chance you die. But they've concluded 100%, or maybe 99%, a dreadnought sarcophagus will not work. So they basically took a punt on the Rubicon Primaris, and it just so happened to work. And this has become a policy in the Dark Angels now, that in order to ensure there are more Primaris they can trust, wounded battle brothers, or seriously wounded ones, would be given the crossing of the Rubicon Primaris if they couldn't be healed conventionally, so that there were more trustworthy Primaris Marines. It's almost become standard operating practice for them now. Which is interesting.
Yeah.
And the last thing that this article talks about is how the rest of the Imperium is seeing the Dark Angels at the moment. Because for a long time, the Dark Angels have been dogged by one particular accusation: Legion building. They have very often been accused that the Unforgiven are basically a Legion in all but name, that they're kind of still working like a Legion under the command of Azrael and diddly-diddly-dee. Now, those accusations have not gone away. If anything, they've actually gotten louder, because of the coordination of the Unforgiven, especially now that they're all kind of boned. But there is a lot more support for them as well. Those who criticize them all the more, but there are more defending them and saying so more loudly. And I quote the article here. Some make the argument that such a force, the force being the Unforgiven Pseudo-Legion, acts as an essential counterweight to the growing power of Ultramar following Guilliman's return. And later in the article it goes on to say, in the era Indomitus, this policy of using less Dark Angels GNC than their GNC purity would expect has appeared to be a bit relaxed. Some inquisitorial circles argue this is due to Guilliman, with the Primarch recognising their genetic strength and commitment to the Imperium. Others contest that it is due instead to a desire in some Terran or Martian circles to increase the Unforgiven's overall strength and thus act as a potential counterbalance to the potential of the Ultramarines. So, they are setting up or hinting at the idea that they could do a Imperial Civil War Mark II electric boogaloo, Guilliman versus the Unforgiven.
Interesting.
Now, I don't think they're going to do this. I don't. But they've left the door open for that option, should they choose to.
For when Lion inevitably turns up at some point in the future in 10th edition or something.
I wonder when it's gonna
And
happen.
It's possible. And we also know that Luther, or the Fallen in general, are gathering in a region that the article calls the Somnium Stars. And there's this idea of a Fallen Legion, and Azrael believes it's led by Luther. It could be led by Marvis, it could be led by Bloody Cypher, for all we know. So if Johnson returns and does as Luther said he would do, and pardons Luther, and somehow manages to reconcile those two aspects, well, we actually do have a proper Legion knocking around. And we have two Primarchs who we know have come to blows in the past with the whole Imperium Secundus stuff. So they've left the door open. Like I say, I don't think they'll ever go that way, but they could.
Oh, we shall see.
We certainly shall. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say about Dark Angels. So yes, they have Primaris in Deathwing now. That's why. And also the Legion building is kind of more okay than it used to be. Anyway, Remleiz, you've been reading, I'm sure.
Yes, you might want to put spoiler warning up for this one.
Okay, what am I spoiling for?
Belisarius Cawl, The Great Work.
I'm excited.
Okay, who's the author?
Guy Haley.
This is why I needed to break
He's
this
gonna
show
hate
up
us
into
forever.
having
Do
that
you
nice...
realize that?
To be honest, they probably all hate me in by now anyway.
Fair enough. Fair point.
I mean, you are Captain Nitpick,
Captain
so... I'm no better, but Remleiz is the true Captain Nitpick.
So, basically, this story focuses on the dead world of Sotha, which, as you know, is the homeworld of the Scythes of the Emperor that got eaten by the Nids, and was also the site of the Pharos Beacon during the Horus Heresy.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
Correct.
basically, we now know that the Pharos Beacon, the device that acted as a lighthouse in the middle of the warp during the Ruin Storm, it's not Old One tech, it's Necron tech. And not only that, it's a fucking Catan. Well, Catan shard, but still.
Not an entire Catan.
No, a shard.
Now. So, Catan, not psychic. No connection to the warp whatsoever, which is why they needed the Dolmen Gates to breach the webway. I don't believe they're blank. But
No, they're weak to
certainly
warp
not
energy.
quite. And somehow...
It's a Catan called Zarhulash the Potentate. Or Potentate, or however you pronounce it.
Okay. Theory. The Necrons, after they shattered the Catan, sealed it away, and it was a particularly powerful shard, so in order to keep it in check, they kept it directly exposed to the warp, and thus it was kept weak by being directly exposed to the warp all of the time. Doesn't explain the beacon bit, but it might explain the warp bit. I'm really clutching at straws here.
Yeah, I mean, it's to... Right. So basically, the Pharos was designed to harness... empathy or something. It's like, hang on, what? This doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, Cole ends up having, pretty much a nice long conversation with him, basically saying, like how the Necrons, they're, ungrateful little shits because, they turned on us, blah, blah, blah. But we'll take our revenge on the entire galaxy once we get out of, once I get myself out of here. Can you let me out, by the way? And Cole's like, unleash a Catan from its prison. Okay. And then teleports him to, across the other end of the galaxy into the middle of a tomb world.
Fun times.
Okay, main question going into the book is, why was Cawl on Sotha?
Because basically, he made a deal with the surviving chapter master size the Emperor to, quote, restore Sotha.
Which is possible. We've seen the Mechanicus do terraforming before, so atmospheric restoration and planetary geological restoration is admittedly difficult because it's been completely nommed, but not impossible.
It was quite interesting the fact that that while pretty much the entirety of the Size of the Emperor chapter is on crusade, blah blah blah, the surviving baseline Size of the Emperor basically is just stationed in this orbital platform surrounding Sotha, and it's like 20 Space Marines plus 4 Terminators, and that's it. plus their chapter master and master of the forge. All the Primaris ones are off fighting somewhere else. Oh, and guess as to why Sofa fell.
The Nids ate it.
Yeah, but guess how they managed to breach the planetary shield generator?
Catan?
No, Gene Stealer cult on Sofa.
Is this really surprising?
It's quite a popular planet, seems.
I mean, this is not a surprise given that...
And not only that, Gene Stealer hybrids in the middle of the ranks of the chapter's serfs.
Again, not actually...
How do you not notice, 3 armed people walking around your fortress monastery? It's like, hang on, why have you got 3 arms?
Gen.
Why have you got a blue carapace?
Gen.
No, these ones are described as having a third arm. In serf robes.
Right, okay.
How do you not
Now, the
notice?
bit about a Gene Stealer cult on Sotha, I can absolutely believe, because...
Oh yeah, that's fine, but the fact you got, third gen hybrids in the serfs, how do they not spot this shit? You gotta wonder.
Yes, unless they had a mutation problem on the planet already, but we don't know that.
Also, considering how many weird shit is happening on this planet, maybe it's not even surprising at this point.
Okay, so Cawl's there to
Also,
fix a planet. Is that all he's there for? He's there to fix a planet.
Pretty much. Oh, I forgot to mention as well, we learned something in regards to Gene Stealers. Gene Stealers don't need to breathe.
So when Shadowbreaker 1 gets nuked and lives, and now we've got one that gets voided and lives, or equivalent.
Yeah, because there's some other rearguard Nid organisms left on the planet, and they've actually got special biomorphs that act as rebreathers. So that's how they survive, but the geniuses don't need it because apparently they can survive weeks at a time without taking a breath and up to several centuries, in hibernation. So they can be fully active for a week without needing to breathe. Or several weeks, rather, without needing to breathe. And that's like...
Respiration,
This goes against pretty much every single
of
law...
biology.
I mean...
Respiration, mother flipper, do you speak it?
Apparently not. Which makes me think, so did all these gene steers have, I don't know, acid for blood that acts as a form of bio battery, mean they don't need to take in oxygen or something?
Even if they
I don't
need
know.
to take in oxygen, if they're converting, let's say they convert the oxygen super slowly, or whatever they need, whatever their baseline gas they need to live is, if they're converting that they're using that up and creating something new. That's how respiration works.
But it's not only that. Remember, at this point in time, Sotha has no atmosphere. At all.
Oh.
And these gene steers are probably sitting there for...
Centuries?
Fuck. At least. When did Sotha fall? That was...
It can't have been any earlier
Kraken?
than... Yeah, it was after...
Sotha was Kraken.
Behemoth was about 750 M41, was Behemoth. So Kraken was about 760, 770?
Yeah, because first one was Behemoth, then it was Kraken, and then it was Leviathan.
Correct. I think Kraken was between 750 and 850 M41. So we're looking at about a 400-year window here.
Yeah, it's a long time to go without taking a breath.
Quite. Not to mention all the waste products that will be building up in your cells where you don't need them and want rid of them, thus ruining your gas exchange systems. And I'm going to stop talking about cell biology now.
It was quite cool seeing, when they're actually entering Fortress Monastery and seeing, the evidence about, you see the, bullet marks and acid burns, and you see the remains of Space Marine armor just scattered about, but it's been peeled apart, someone peeling apart a lobster, but there's nothing left. No organic, just articulated suits of armor, which is a nice little touch.
Agreed.
And there's one pretty cool scene where they encounter this holographic recording, and some of the Stars of the Emperor pretty much start having PTSD from watching their battle brothers die, from making their last stand against Nid. And it's oh shit, the geniuses are actually attacking us while this hologram's playing. Fuck. And you basically got, like, Tetrarch Felix going, Call, will you turn off that fucking recording? We can't see the Gene Steers. And Call's like, nah, I'm good. So turn off that fucking recording!
Oh, good.
But we also learn more about this character called Alpha Primus. That I mentioned him briefly the other week. That one from that short story.
Remind me, because I've been very busy.
The librarian Primaris Marine that basically went on a one-man mission against that Inquisitor who refused to do what Gilliman said. That one.
Vaguely rings a bell. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah. Turns out he was the very first Primaris Marine created.
I mean, the clue's right in the name. Alpha Primus.
Yeah. And not only that, he's a hell of a lot bigger than the other Primaris Marines.
Are we talking, like...
He's not Primarch size, but he's like noticeably bigger. Like, much larger, much bulkier. And apparently, because of this, his entire life is pain. Literally, his every waking moment is pain.
Oh, he's a kind of a bit of an Andre the Giant figure, almost.
Kind of, yeah, but nowhere near as likable.
Accurate.
It's just like, Call, he went a bit too carried away, and it's like, he hasn't tried to remake a Primarch, because apparently not even Call would be that audacious, and I'm thinking to myself, this is cool. He fucking would.
Yes, he fucking would.
Also, this book seems to contradict Dark Imperium in regards to Sancprimus Portum.
Hang on. Same author, right? Oh, God.
Because how in Dark Imperium, the Sancprimus Portum had, all 20 Primarch gene seeds? In this, it's only 18.
Oh, God.
It's like...
where did the other two go?
This goes back to what you mentioned, in regards to, like, the guy needs an editor.
Uh-huh. I'm genuinely wondering, like, see, I don't want to be mean, but is there an editor? Because if there's not, there needs to be one.
Let me double check. I'm gonna just double check. Produced by Games Workshop, cover illustration by blah blah blah. No.
Well, see, I think I checked in some other book as well, and I haven't found anything.
Yeah, the only books I know off the top of my head that I know have editors are basically just really the anthologies that tend to be edited by.
Yeah.
I'm just looking, Tales of Heresy is edited by Lindsay Priestley.
Okay.
For example.
Yeah, and so on and so forth. They don't generally talk about it because, well...
if he doesn't have an editor, please get one, guy. We're not angry. We're very disappointed because we know what you're capable of. We've read Dante. We've listened to Prophets of the War. Those were great.
That's kind of the point.
Yeah, and I can vouch.
That kind of makes it even sadder because, he can write very well.
He can do really good stuff, and then his last few stuff has been kind of. I mean, don't get me wrong. The Belisarius Cawl book overall it's not bad. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's a hell of a lot better than the Comrade Curse book. I'll tell you that now.
Well, see, you said you're
much.
Gonna give Comrade Curse 6 out of 10.
At best. That's me being generous.
Okay.
That's me being generous.
You're too generous, my dude. Okay.
To be honest, I was just mainly happy because the fact that Josahar and Krieg Ace actually got some speaking lines in the first time in 15 years.
Yeah, but I mean, it's nothing too important though, and there's still absolutely no information on why. Oh, not why, when. Josahar has actually become first captain.
Yeah, that annoys me.
Yeah. I know.
Because I actually tweeted guy a while back in regards because at the end of Devastation about Gilliman shows up, and I basically thought if Gilliman was on board, does that mean he would have visited Sanguinis' grave or his tomb rather, and guy responded well, we do really know where he's buried, and then James Swallow comes up and says, yep, he's
yes,
he's buried on because I wrote about it in Red Fury.
Awkward.
Oh, that is
It
awkward.
is indeed. Ah.
Oh. Oh.
Uh-huh.
Also, speaking of James Swallow, I've heard a weird thing from some people as of late, and I don't understand the basis for this, but for some reason, a lot of people are coming out saying that his reference series is non-canon, because apparently it's not, purely because it's not mentioned in the codex. And it's like, when does that ever stop anything being canon?
I have no idea, to be honest. Never heard about that.
Exactly. That's the first I've heard of it. Like, I admit, the Wraithen series plays a little bit fast and loose with the Blood Angels and what they do. But I never doubted its canonicity, because remember the saying, everything is canon, not everything is true.
I might be wrong here, but I think the first Fabius Bile novel might have referenced it. I could be wrong.
I haven't
could
read
be wrong.
Primogenes.
It's been a long time since I read the Fabius Bile novels. Speaking of which, I need to ask Josh when you can make it releasing the third one, because I need a sequel to Clone Lord.
Well, at the minute, Josh Reynolds has been busy writing a bunch of shorts for Cities of Sigmar. I know that's what he's been doing of late.
We need Fabius Bile 3.
I haven't read the first two.
We need a lot
yet,
of things.
So maybe, you know, when he'll get to the third one, at least I'll finish the first two. Because
He also needs a...
Oh, are we closing the spoiler section, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, welcome back, spoiler people. We actually finished the spoilers about 5 minutes ago, but I wouldn't go scrolling back just in case.
We also need ADB to write, the third Black Legion book, but hey.
Uh-huh.
There are so many things we need to be written, and that we want to be written, and would very much like to be written.
Because I actually did ask Gav Thought this the other day in regards to the Phoenix Lord series, because he did a sermon, he did James R, and he hasn't gone back to it since. And after he said after he does the third Inari novel, he will actually be free to go back to do the Phoenix Lord series.
Maybe then I'll read the first two as well. I have all of them in limited edition. It's just where did I get the time?
Oh, and speaking of the Phoenix Lord one, we found out that the I don't know if I brought this up last time, but the Sermon's sword can permanently kill demons.
I'm not surprised. I feel like I knew that, but I also feel like I don't.
And it's also got first time I've seen, in 40k fiction, canonically, the term demon princess being used.
It's a nice term, I like it.
Canonically, yeah. Actually, speaking of blades, I got a few comments quite recently on my Farsight video. I'm assuming this was probably because of you talking about the Dawnblade, saying that, oh no, the Dawnblade's not Necron tier tech, it's not Catan tech, it's Old Ones tech, what are you talking about? Which I assume is because of you?
Nope.
Oh, it's just whenever someone comes at me with a slightly sideways idea about that, I just assume you said it somewhere.
My premise of the matter is that the Dawnblade is in actuality the last Crone Sword.
Oh, that was what they were saying to me. It's the last Crone Sword. That's what they were saying. Sorry, not Old One Tech. It was the last Crone Sword. That was it. And I don't buy it, but anyway, that's not what we'll have in this discussion.
I think it would be a cool twist. And it does have, technically, it does have
twist,
powers
yes,
over life and death like the other Crone Sword, because it extends his lifespan, which is a power over life and death. It does fit with the...
But that's big. But it's not psychic, it's chronophagic. It's built into the metal. I don't know. I'm willing to...
And also remember, the Crone Swords can shapeshift. I mean, look at, Iriel's Spear of Twilight. It was originally a spear, then it took the form of a sword after he got brought back to life.
Like I say, I'm not willing to rule it out, but personally, I like the idea that it is just a Necron tier lifesteal tech. I quite like that idea. But that's just me. Anyway, we've been going for an hour and 40 minutes already. Should we do some questions?
Oh, yes. We got a lot of questions, but we won't be able to get through them all, unfortunately.
Let's get through some.
Well, it was worth it.
Yes. Question for Disarmonia. How do you feel about Harlequins?
Indifferent. I mean, they look nice. I don't know. I've never really found much interest in them, unfortunately.
Do you appreciate their, I'm probably going to butcher this, Grand Guignol aesthetic?
I can appreciate it. It's not my thing entirely. but I have an appreciation for it, indeed.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, question for all of us. If we got to choose, which Imperial Guard regiment should have its own codex?
Pass.
Michael?
Krieg or Catachan?
I'm going to go completely left field, and I'm going to pick Praetorian. Just so we can learn about... Just so we can learn more about Space Britain.
I think Elysium and Krieg, because they're the Forge World ones and they're super unique, would probably get the most out of a codex rather than a supplement. Whereas I think like the Praetorians, Cadia, Katakan, they'd be better as supplements because they're functionally similar, but not too similar.
Fair
that
enough.
makes sense.
Another question for Disarmonia. Who is your favourite character outside of the Night Lord's Legion?
Oh god. Okay, I'll put it simply. Top 3 Primarchs. Curse, I know it's inside the Night Lord's Legion. Lorgar and Angron. Top 3 Space Marines. Sevatar, Argiltal, Karn.
Fair enough.
Argiltal and Khan and Angron, I understand. I'm bemused by the Lorgar, but I feel like we talked
Sorry?
about Bearer of the Word. I feel like we talked... I'm bemused by the choice of Lorgar, but I feel like we talked about Bearer of the
Yes,
Word
yes,
when
we
you were
did.
on the show last time. And yeah, so I vaguely remember why you actually quite like Lorgar. I personally don't
It's
get it.
fair enough. We
but
can
I-
always
yeah,
agree to
I-
disagree.
it's not one...
okay.
Yeah, I'm squarely in the... I know you didn't have a nice childhood, but still F
I'm not
Lorgar
gonna
camp.
judge you for your decisions. Maybe just a little bit.
Oh!
I mean, more
I just
F
remember,
Errands,
speaking
but, yeah.
of World Bearers and Childhood, because I also managed to read the short story Child of Chaos, which is from the Black Library Events Anthology for 2019, not last year's one specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out Erebus isn't. He's not the original Erebus.
Sorry, what? What?
What?
The original Erebus was someone on Colchis before he got raised to a Space Marine.
Wait, what?
Someone from his village when he was growing up, because it's all being told from, quote, Erebus's point of view, where he would just sit on the porch of his house, pulling the legs off scorpions.
1 second.
And-
Question, please. Who wrote that?
Chris Wright.
Okay. Moving on.
And basically, the real Erebus is basically a preacher in the town, blah, blah, blah. And, our Erebus, his mum, no joke, this really fat woman on a rocking chair on her porch, pretty much turns around and says to him, "Why can't you be more like a nice boy Erebus?"
God.
And then Erebus says to himself, "Why can't I be more like Erebus?" So he goes out and strangles him to death, and then,
wow.
then takes his identity.
Oh wow. That's a new
And
one.
it turns out he never stopped his worship of the ruinous powers, even when the Emperor. Even
Tell
when
us
the
something
Emperor
we
turned
don't
up, and it's
know.
like he saw the Emperor's like, "Yeah, you're a false god. I'm still worshipping chaos. Fuck you." So everyone says,
I
Yeah,
mean, that's
probably-
not surprising.
Pretty,
he
not
makes a
hard to
point saying
expect
like,
something like that.
he also makes a point towards it saying, everyone calls us a traitor, but I was never a traitor because I never changed sides.
I mean, fair enough, I guess. Well, see, I'm actually pretty glad that we are getting some background for Erebus, because I believe actually the last time I was here, we discussed this specifically, that Erebus has no background, so there's no explanation for his behavior. No, so yeah, I mean,
No, he's just a dick.
Because we knew more about Corferon at that point than we did Erebus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because Corferan's back and Corferan and Lorgar's sort of relationship was explored in Bearer of the Word. Erebus was just this dick
Yeah.
who comes in from nowhere, and I mean, I'm not sure I think that. I mean, it's a great idea to say, okay, this kid was effed from the get-go, but that's still a little
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the question, sorry. Right. What are things you are most looking forward to seeing or hoping for in Siege of Terror?
Well, well, I know what I'm probably not gonna get, because we already got our little bit of the 8th Legion in Lost of the Damned, and who's representing. So I can just only hope that there will be a scene with some character that I don't want to just disappear forever, representing the Night Lords at the siege.
I really want to see the
Oh,
Sanguinius
that's
Cabana
actually-
fight.
I mean, a lot of exciting stuff is happening there, obviously.
I'll be honest, I want to see the Sanguinius Horus fight.
Yeah, we discussed this, I think, last time about should we do the whole fight, or should we just hard cut? I quite like the idea that they set it up, they have their little promo back and forth, hard cut to the Emperor, and then we follow the Emperor until he arrives and sees
Honestly, I
Sanguinius
think a lot
dead
of
on the
people are going to
ground.
complain, but then if they do the whole fight, I think a lot of people are going to complain. And I think in any case and in any scenario, a lot of people are going to complain because that's like the main event, and
Agreed.
I think everyone has certain expectation
I-
that none of them will probably gonna happen.
Yeah, there's no way they'll please everyone. I think the reason I want it that way is because the Horus Sanguinius fight is so important it's going to take up like a chunk of a book. So either they have to end book 7 on the Horus Sanguinius fight, and then book 8 is all about Emperor versus Horus. Or if they want to have the Battle on the Vengeful Spirit be just the last book, then they're going to have 2 ultra mega titanic boss fights back to back, and that might just not work. That's too many chapters without a breathe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could see it working either way. It's just I personally would quite like the idea that we don't see the fight. So the mythos about Sanguinius and the chink in Horus's armor, which I know is possibly due to Russ, I quite like to keep that mythos alive a little
I
bit.
completely
I don't know.
understand what you're saying actually, but can you imagine, the level of disappointment and complaining if they actually not write the scene? It's gonna be like, we've been waiting for this for all of these years, and it just never happened. It's never described in detail or anything. I don't think they're gonna risk like that. I genuinely don't
Yeah,
think so.
I get
Even
that.
though I see your point, and it's fair enough.
Right, okay, next question. Is Rites of Passage by Mike Brooks a continuation of A Common Ground? Yes, it is. Okay, question for Disarmonia. Would the Kurz novel be better if you read it from back to front or upside down?
No.
Ha!
Okay, another question for Disarmonia. I have recently read the entire Night Lord's Omnibus and fell in love with the 8th Legion. Will the Comrade Kurz novel ruin that feeling?
Yes. No, generally, I can elaborate. There are so much goodness out there aside from the trilogy. Well, first of all, the trilogy is not just the 3 novels. There are also 3 short stories in there, which is Shadow Knight, Throne of Lies, and The Core. Then you can also read Massacre, which is a short story about the same characters. Then there's also Prince of Crows, The Long Night, Child of Night, A Lord of the Night, Night and Night. So many good stuff. This one is entirely skippable. If you love the Night Lords, skip it. If you hate the Night Lords, skip it. If you know nothing about the Night Lords, skip it. It's
Skip
not
it.
a good book. I'm sorry. It is what it is.
Yeah. Personally, my favourite Night Lord book is Lord of the Night, but that's probably because, that's the first one I wrote, so I probably have a bit of a bias towards it.
Well, I mean, it's a classic at this point.
Oh, yeah, it is, yeah. Okay, bloody thing cutting out. Oh, damn it. Fucking.
I can hear you.
Right, what does the Commissariat think about the Ecclesiarchy?
They're indoctrinated by it by now.
There you go.
I suspect. Well, that's my guess anyway.
Question from Michael. Will you ever consider as a punishment for a bad behaving student to give him homework assignment that says, there's a 40k novel, now try and explain the science behind it?
No, because then I'll have to mark it, and I probably can't do it either. And also because that's just unfair, because I don't know. I feel like that's just not something that I would do in good conscience. Like, being able to use my 40k and Warhammer knowledge to make fun science questions, that's one thing. Actually trying to use Warhammer as a method to deliver science is a terrible idea. It's a terrible, terrible mechanism for that. So I think that will just create too many misinterpretations, and that's a big problem in science education, is the idea of misinterpretations about what's actually going on when you see things. I won't bore you with the details, but we've had lectures and seminars all about this sort of stuff. In fact, we're doing it today. I was teaching today, and all of it was like dealing with these misconceptions. So if you get someone to say, okay, go away and explain how a lasgun works. Okay, so they'll go away, they'll say, okay, you press a button and it fires some light because it's a laser. Okay, tell me about, but things that stuff's degree level stuff, so that's just not fair. So no is the short answer.
Okay, question for Michael. Is Ian Watson a demon prince of Slaanesh?
You're asking the wrong person.
Is that a yes or a no?
Listen, I have no idea because I don't engage with that stuff because I value my job.
Okay, what do players do who don't like the Primaris fluff? Will all the original Marines eventually be dropped? What will that do to the lore?
This is a question that people have been thinking about for a while, ever since Primaris was introduced, is this just a slow death for regular Marines? And let's be fair, it lore-wise, it kind of is. I mean,
in the White Scar supplement, for example, says, like, all new recruits are being Primarified, so...
Precisely, and we know the Dark Angels are converting a lot of people over, as I talked about earlier in the show. So I think, gameplay-wise, it will take many years before we see regular Marines phased out or put into Legends, because Legends is now a place they can put them. I don't think we'll see them taken out of Codex Space Marines for a good long time, even when we have a complete Primaris range, because the backlash to that will be exceptionally severe. Yeah. However, there will come a point where enough people have been in the hobby for enough time that all they know is Primaris. So they'll have got into the game, say, around 2018, around today, and they'll know conceptually that other Space Marines exist, and they'll be aware and they'll read about them, but they'll know, okay, the new Space Marines are all Primaris. If I want a homebrew, my chapter is probably going to be Primaris. And so there'll be a point where you reach a saturation of Space Marine players who only know and only play Primaris, and that might be the time where regular Space Marines get retired. I don't see that happening for a good half a decade, maybe even a full decade.
A couple of editions at least.
Happening. A couple of editions, definitely. I could see it happening, though. As for what it will do to the lore, nothing, because it is easy enough for some chapters to have just been isolated by the Cicatrix Maledictum to just carry on as normal without ever knowing Primaris exist. Sure, they don't go front and centre anymore, but they're still there.
Yeah, because wasn't it something like 96% of Space Marine chapters have Primaris now? So still 4%.
Something like that, yeah. And we know that not all chapters took them willingly. The Blood Ravens, for example, were reticent. They've now sort of embraced it a little bit, but they were very reticent about taking them on. So the other catch to the Primaris is the people that are able to make them are Technomagi from Mars. So at the moment, the Dark Angels are trying to find a way to circumvent the Martian priesthood so that they can boot them off of the rock, because they're being a bit too inquisitive. Now, Tech Priests are not immortal. Quite. They can die.
A few unfortunate accidents.
Unfortunate accidents, invasions, battlefield engagements, maybe in some cases just too much mental and biological degradation to sustain life. These Tech Priests are going to die.
I mean, bear in mind, I don't think they're going to necessarily die from biological degradation, considering that, Belisarius Cawl's over 10,000 years old at this point.
Yeah, it's unlikely, but it could. Because Cawl's had access to everything he's ever wanted, ever. If you're a techno-magi stuck on a backwater planet in the arse end of nowhere, you can't really innovate your way out of the situation.
Fair point.
But, yes, okay, fair. Either way, these tech priests can die. And when they die, the ability to create Primaris for potentially decades dies with them, unless the chapters learn how to make their own. So, there's potential for them to even use the Primaris as a temporary stopgap and then phase them back out again by saying, okay, Cawl is assassinated and the Techno-Magi who are maybe somehow connected by some neural network that he's built. I'm fan-picking here, don't run with it. Some sort of like neural cybernetic network backlash wipes the knowledge of all Primaris so that no other race can exploit the technology of Belisarius Cawl. All of a sudden, there's no more Primaris, and that's all they've got. So they could start to die out, and they go back to the old method. Or we could have the idea that Guilliman... I remember that I don't remember the source on this, but I remember hearing that Guilliman hated the idea of the Primaris and was using them kind of as a stopgap, as a convenience to sort of fill the void, and that they were just to be disposed of when dealt with, although I've also heard the opposite, that the old school are being done off with in order to make way for the Primaris, so I don't really know the situation there. But that's just my opinion, and I've rambled on far too long, so someone else should talk.
How are we doing for time, by the way? Have we got time for one more question?
I'm fine.
We've got about, it's 1 hour 53 on my clock.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got time for one more question then. Okie dokie then. What are the odds of us getting a Primaris Grimaldus for the Black Templars?
Hi.
To be honest, out of all the currently existing characters who aren't, haven't got their own codex or anything, or supplement or anything like that, I think the only one I can reasonably believe that won't get the upgrade will be Gabriel Seth.
Yeah, because he hates them.
Yeah, so I can't imagine them, Primarifying him and justifying it unless, he was grievously injured and it was the only way to save his life, like with that Dark Angel.
Yeah, I can't see them doing it to Mephiston either.
No.
Because Mephiston's already died. Twice.
So why won't you die?
I don't see Helbrecht going over. I find it unlikely that we'll see Helbrecht go over. I don't know why. I have no justification for this. I just don't think they'll flip Helbrecht.
He'll just whine about it. So they're not pure enough. Or something, I don't know.
Although I am looking forward to the Primaris Emperor's Champion whenever they get round to that.
That would be interesting, yeah.
But yes, high odds on Grimaldus. I think of all the Black Templars we have, he's the best chance we've got, unless they make someone new like they have for the Iron Hands of the Salamanders.
Yeah. That's the one. When we get the Imperial Fist supplement, do you think they might add the Black Templars characters into that as well?
Ooh, no. Crimson Fist, the Index Astartes, they might, but I don't think they will for the Templars. They're too different.
Okay, that's fair enough. Okay, and why are people asking about Keanu Reeves all of a sudden? I do not know. I generally don't know why they're asking about that. And last question for tonight will be, for Disarmonia, what do you think about each of the Primarch books?
Okay, give me 1 second and I'm gonna tell you. Okay, Roboute Guilliman, whatever, mediocre, forgettable. Lemon Ross, fine, had some nice moments. If I'm not mistaken, it explored the infamous fight between him and Lion, right? So
It did, yes.
That was a nice one. Magnus, fine, kind of, not bad, but not too exciting.
Serviceable.
Very nice one of my favorites, highly recommend. Lorgar, a very nice one. Highly recommend. One of my favorites as well. Fulgrim, closer to the better ones, but kind of in the middle as well. I guess it's a fine read. Ferrous Man is horrendously bad. Hate it, burn it. Jagatai Khan, fine. Not very memorable for some reason. Same with Vulcan.
Just like Jagatai Khan.
Sounds about right.
Vulcan, same. Actually, hardly remember what happens there. Korax, not great. Midnight Black is not a thing. Angron, wonderful, heartbreaking. My favorite book of the series so far. Highly recommend to everyone. I thought there's nothing more that can be written about Angron at this point. I was very wrong. It's a wonderful book. Conricers, you know.
We just spent the 40 minutes on the show ranting about it.
That's the answers. I hope it helps someone.
Actually, do we think we'll get the review of the next Primarch novel at the weekend?
This would actually be nice, because they,
I hope so.
I don't think right?
They did say that they weren't going to do any more Primarch novels for this year.
I mean, this year it's not going to last for long.
I mean, the weekend is at the start of November. They've only got 2 months to wait, and it's January.
True.
Which one would you guys like to see next?
I mean, Sanguinius would be lovely. Lion would be nice, depending on when they pitched it.
Mortarion.
I think there's only one thing you can really do for Lion at this point for his Primarch book, Fall of Caliban. That's really it's really the only place you can go to cover that story and put it, anywhere near the Horus Heresy series. Because thinking about it, you can't really put that...
Lorgar's was his childhood, and you could do Lion's childhood growing up on Caliban and being found by the
kind of explored in the Heresy already, though?
Kind of, yeah.
I wonder what are they going to do with Alfarius. Because it can be very, very interesting, or it can be like the most basic thing ever.
Well, we had to meet with the Cabal, with in Legion, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, sorry, duh.
I'm curious in regards to Sanguinius. Will they actually, follow up with that story, Were the Silent King, and actually have Sanguinius meet the Silent King?
No, the Silent King was off in the extragalactic plane until the Tyranids came.
Well, not according to that short story. Apparently, he met Sanguinius.
Ooh.
He met Sanguinius. He spoke to Sanguinius, and that's why he's wearing, a mask of Sanguinius's face in honor of him.
Who wrote that?
Laurie Goulding.
Okay.
I mean, Sanguinius...
You're thinking it's going to be Guy Haley, didn't you?
No, I mean, I'm actually not
surprised.
No, I was... It's okay.
I was just curious, because, nobody writes Necrons aside from, Nick Kime in Damnos. Nobody writes Necrons.
Well, it was, what was his name? Joe Perino, I think his name was, but he no longer works for Black Library. So he did Devourer, which was basically Nids versus Necrons, which was actually pretty good.
I have no idea.
Yeah, new one on me. But yeah, I do think Mortarion is probably the most likely.
Because,
that was a good shout.
After the Bird Dagger, it kind of will make sense to, kind of add more to his story now.
Question is, who do you reckon to be last?
Did the...
Horus, most likely, yeah.
Yeah, it kind of has to be, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Either Horus or Sang, one of the two.
I think it probably will be Sang and then Horus.
Oh, actually, that goes back to a previous point, because you know how you mentioned about, the possibility of just hard cutting the fight between Horus and Sanguinius?
Yeah.
Maybe...
Make that Sanguinius' novel,
I don't
or
think
Horus'
they're
novel.
going to do that outside the Solar War. I mean, the Siege. I don't think they're going to do it in, a completely different, set of books. I might be wrong.
I mean, it would give the fight the airtime and all of the time for the grandiose that it needs, but again, taking it out of the Solar War is dangerous. So, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. I'm going to go on there and state that Lion's book will be The Fall of Caliban. Because where else are you going to put it in... Where else can you put it? You can't really fit it in the season.
Well, yeah, but certain books in the Primarch series are pretty whatever. It's not any significant events, It's just...
What about the Xenocides?
Yeah, I mean, because that's always a possibility, but that also got brought up in a short story in the Signs of the Emperor anthology as well. So that's when the Alpha Legion first made their appearance, and you had the Alpha Legion officer go up to Lion, and Lion goes, so what's your name? Oh, I'm Alfarius. But this is before they had their Primarch, so...
Okay.
Right, okay.
Interesting.
Because, Lion could be ranked in the Xenocides, but that still leaves the possibility, where do you fit the Fall of Caliban into this? Because that's a very major event that is tied to the Horus Heresy, because that happened literally just after the Siege of Terra.
Well, actually, the White Dwarf article says that the Dark Angels kind of did the Great Scouring first.
Oh, they've changed that, have they?
I'll try and get the quote up. Sorry, I know I'm extending the runtime of the show here.
Because all the law I've seen in regards to it, I'll admit I've not got this right, Dwarf, but all the law I've seen in regards to it basically had them pretty much, as soon as they arrived at Terra, they realised they were too late, so they just fucked off back home pretty much immediately after.
Well, the way I always do it is they were late. Lion was sort of moping. Was looking at like a plaque in the palace, and then he had a bit of a talk with Russ, and
nearly kills Russ.
Nearly killed Russ, and then naffed off. But the article here says that the only course left to the Dark Angels was revenge, and the Lion's Sons played a principal role in the events later named the Scouring, when the remaining traitors were diddly diddly dee. Little did the Dark Angels know that there was one final act left to be discovered.
Right,
implying that the Scouring happened first.
Right.
Or it could be that they just did their part in the Scouring was as they went home.
That seems more likely, to be honest. That's where to actually, reconcile the two things.
Yep, that will make sense.
Okay. I think we should probably call it here for time now.
Yes, I think we should. So, yes, that has been episode 80. Fitting, actually, that it started with the number 8, given the main topic of the show. Yes, that has been episode 80 of Adeptus Podcastus, and we do hope you have enjoyed it. Apologies for the lack of time for questions. You can understand why. But if you have any more, leave them in the comments with the word question, and we will endeavour to answer them next time. And I'm also going to make a point here. We're not going to announce any upcoming guests, but you might want to keep an eye out for the episode in about a month's time, because that one could be quite interesting. You want to keep an eye out for that show. So, we will see you very, very soon. So for now, this has been Tactica Imperialis.
This has been Remleiz from 40k Theories.
And this has been the demon that killed Gandalf Krivok.
Thank you all for watching, everybody, and goodbye.